Have you ever wondered how America's most powerful mafia families stopped fighting each other and built an organization that lasted for decades? It wasn't a peace treaty or a lucky break. It began with one decision that changed the future of organized crime in America. That decision created the Commission, a secret council built to settle disputes and protect shared interests. But before that happened, New York's criminal underworld was tearing itself apart. The early 1930s were a time of uncertainty across the United States. The Great Depression had left millions searching for work and financial stability. While ordinary families struggled, another battle unfolded behind closed doors. Several mafia families competed for territory, influence, and profitable operations. Old alliances collapsed as suspicion and ambition replaced trust. Every meeting carried risk, and every decision could change the balance of power. At the center of the conflict stood two powerful leaders, Joe Masseria and Salvatore Maranzano. Both believed they deserved to lead New York's mafia world. Neither man was willing to compromise. Their rivalry became known as the Castellammarese War. As the conflict grew, more people questioned the old way of doing business. Many believed endless internal battles weakened everyone involved. Among those watching closely was a younger leader named Charles "Lucky" Luciano. He believed constant conflict destroyed opportunities and threatened long-term success. Instead of seeking absolute power, Luciano imagined a different future. He believed cooperation could achieve what endless rivalry never could. That simple idea would soon reshape the American Mafia forever. But before a new system could rise, the old one had to fall. The Castellammarese War had dragged on for months, leaving every mafia family exhausted and increasingly uncertain about the future. Neither side could claim a lasting victory, even after repeated attempts to gain the upper hand. Every new conflict created more instability and made long-term cooperation even harder. Many younger members quietly wondered whether the old leadership had reached its limit. Charles "Lucky" Luciano watched the situation with patience instead of emotion. He believed the conflict was damaging everyone, regardless of who eventually came out ahead. To Luciano, survival depended on strategy, not endless rivalry. Joe Masseria still believed he could restore his authority through traditional methods. He trusted loyalty, experience, and personal influence above everything else. But the world around him was changing faster than he realized. A new generation wanted stability instead of constant internal conflict. Luciano understood that lasting influence required a completely different approach. In April 1931, the balance of power changed dramatically. Joe Masseria was no longer part of the picture. His departure marked the end of one chapter in mafia history. Many believed Salvatore Maranzano now stood alone at the top. For a short time, that appeared to be true. Maranzano quickly reorganized New York's mafia families into a new structure. He officially recognized what would later become the Five Families. The system brought more order than before, but one problem remained. Maranzano declared himself the boss of bosses. The title placed one man above every other family leader. It reflected the traditional belief that one supreme authority should control everyone else. Some accepted the new arrangement. Others questioned whether history was beginning to repeat itself. Luciano studied every change with great attention. He respected organization, but he doubted absolute power. He believed concentrating authority in one person would eventually create another crisis. If history had taught him anything, it was that unchecked power rarely lasted. Instead of solving old problems, it often created new ones. Luciano kept his thoughts private while carefully building trusted relationships. He knew timing would matter more than speed. Within only a few months, another dramatic turning point arrived. The old model of leadership was about to face its greatest challenge. And one bold decision would open the door to an entirely new system. Salvatore Maranzano believed he had finally restored order after months of conflict. From his perspective, the future looked secure. He had reorganized the families and placed himself at the top of the hierarchy. For many observers, the war appeared to be over, but Charles "Lucky" Luciano saw a different picture. He believed the new system still relied on one dangerous idea. Too much authority rested in the hands of one leader. History had already shown where that path could lead. When one person controlled every major decision, conflict eventually returned. Luciano wanted to break that cycle before it started again. He wasn't looking for another throne. He was looking for a stronger system. Instead of asking who should rule everyone else, he asked a different question. What if important decisions were shared instead of controlled by one person? It was a simple idea, but it challenged decades of tradition. Many older leaders had built their influence under the old rules. Changing those rules would never be easy. Luciano understood that lasting stability required more than personal loyalty. It required a structure that could survive even when leaders changed. He also believed every major family deserved a voice. That approach could reduce internal disputes before they became larger problems. It could also protect valuable business relationships across different cities. Luciano wasn't trying to erase tradition. He wanted to modernize it. His vision focused on cooperation instead of constant competition. It emphasized planning instead of personal ambition. For some leaders, the idea sounded practical. For others, it seemed impossible. The Mafia had always followed powerful individuals. Now Luciano was suggesting that a council should guide the future instead. It was one of the boldest ideas ever proposed inside the organization. If it succeeded, the Mafia would become more organized than ever before. If it failed, another long period of instability could begin. Luciano understood the risks. But he also knew the old system had already reached its limits. A new chapter was about to begin, and it would introduce a governing council unlike anything the American Mafia had seen before. In late 1931, Charles "Lucky" Luciano introduced an idea that would reshape the American Mafia for decades. Instead of placing one leader above everyone else, he proposed a shared council. The goal was simple: prevent another destructive internal war before it could begin. This new organization became known as the Commission. It wasn't designed to replace every Mafia family. It was created to help them work together under a common set of rules. The Commission brought together the leaders of New York's 5 families. It also included representatives from other major organizations, including Chicago and Buffalo. Each leader continued managing his own family's affairs. But major issues were no longer handled alone. Important disputes could now be discussed before they grew into larger conflicts. Territorial disagreements could be addressed through negotiation instead of constant confrontation. Major decisions affecting multiple families required broader discussion. The system encouraged communication where silence had often created suspicion. For Luciano, this was the real strength of the Commission. It reduced the chances that personal rivalries would threaten the entire organization. No single leader held unlimited authority over everyone else. Every influential family had a seat at the table. That balance helped create a more predictable structure. It also gave leaders a reason to cooperate when their interests overlapped. The Commission was not a government. It was not a public institution. It operated entirely in secret. Very few people outside the organization understood how it worked. For years, many Americans had no idea such a council even existed. Behind closed doors, however, its influence continued to grow. Major decisions increasingly followed this new model of shared leadership. The Commission didn't eliminate every disagreement, but it introduced a system that many leaders believed was more stable than the old hierarchy. For the first time, the American Mafia operated with something resembling a central governing council. That decision would shape organized crime across the United States for decades. From the outside, nothing seemed different. Each mafia family still had its own leader, territory, and internal structure. But behind closed doors, an entirely new system was now in place. The Commission became the highest decision-making body for issues affecting multiple families. It wasn't involved in every local matter. Its focus was on decisions that could influence the broader organization. When disagreements crossed family boundaries, leaders could bring them before the council. The goal was to prevent disputes from growing into larger conflicts. This approach protected both stability and long-term interests. Meetings were held privately and away from public attention. Only a small group of trusted leaders took part. There were no public records. No official announcements were ever made. Every discussion remained highly confidential. Each family leader represented his own organization's interests. Major decisions were expected to reflect the interests of the wider network, not just one family. That balance helped reduce the influence of personal ambition. It also encouraged negotiation before taking unnecessary risks. For years, this structure gave the organization greater consistency. The Commission became a place where strategy often replaced emotion. Many historians believe this system marked a turning point in organized crime. Instead of relying on one dominant figure, authority became more widely distributed. That made the organization more adaptable as circumstances changed. The Commission also strengthened connections between families operating in different cities. Those relationships helped to coordinate decisions that affected multiple regions. Although disagreements never disappeared completely, the Council offered a framework for resolving many of them. It became one of the defining features of the American Mafia during the 20th century. But no organization remains unchanged forever. As decades passed, new laws, federal investigations, and insider testimony began exposing the system. The structure that once operated in complete secrecy was slowly brought into public view. For many years, the Commission remained one of the most influential structures within the American Mafia. Its existence helped shape relationships between major families across the United States. The Council didn't eliminate every conflict, but it reduced the kind of internal struggles that had once threatened the entire organization. That stability allowed many families to focus on protecting their own interests. For decades, very little was publicly known about how the Commission operated. Most Americans had never heard its name. Everything began to change during the second half of the 20th century. Federal investigators devoted more resources to organized crime than ever before. New investigative techniques uncovered connections that had remained hidden for years. Court cases gradually revealed details about the Council's structure and influence. Former insiders also provided information that helped authorities understand how the organization functioned. Little by little, the secrecy surrounding the Commission began to disappear. Public awareness continued to grow with each major investigation. The organization that once operated almost entirely in the shadows faced increasing pressure from every direction. Many longtime leaders were eventually removed from positions of influence through successful prosecutions. The Commission never disappeared overnight. Its influence faded gradually as the environment around it continued to change. By the end of the 20th century, the organization no longer held the same level of authority it once had. Even so, its impact on American history remains significant. Many historians view the Commission as one of the most important organizational changes in the history of the American Mafia. It replaced a system built around one dominant leader with a council that emphasized shared decision-making. That single change influenced organized crime for generations. The story of the Commission is not just about power. It is also a story about adaptation, strategy, and leadership during a period of constant change. Its legacy continues to shape books, documentaries, and historical research today. Understanding the Commission also helps explain how organized crime evolved throughout the 20th century. Its story remains one of the most fascinating chapters in the history of the American Mafia.